Alright folks, welcome back. So we're looking at the British pound versus US dollar weekly chart on the left hand side, Euro dollar weekly chart in the center, and the dollar index weekly chart on the right. If you take a look at what we're forming here, we have a inside candle, which is previous low and previous high of the week prior. So we're trading inside of the previous week's range. Same thing with the euro dollar. We're below last week's high and above last week's low. And dollar index, we're below last week's high and above last week's low. This, I think, is in part attributed to the Jackson Hole Symposium that begins day 1 tomorrow on Thursday, and then day 2 on Friday, and then finally on Saturday. This can tend to be volatile sometimes. It can create some market volatility that's unexpected, and in other times it can be nothing. So between that and the Fed chair speaking also, it can create this wait and see type environment, which is what we're getting. So we didn't see a continuation on the upside with dollar, and we haven't really completely broken down either to go lower. So we're inside of the previous week's range. I want to remind you that the number one core tenet to you being here in this mentorship and what I'm teaching you is this weekly range. Now, I don't talk about it all the time because I've already preconditioned you through the core content. So we're focusing primarily on this weekly range phenomenon because this is all that anyone would need to find opportunity. But it also brings with it times where the market isn't likely to do anything that energetic. It's not likely to move above the previous week's high or below the previous week's low. Some of it's because of the seasonal tendency. Other factors, like we're waiting to see what impact the Fed chair and the Jackson Hole Symposium would have on the marketplace. And if you look at your economic calendar, you'll see what I'm referring to as far as the Jackson Hole Symposium. What it is like the who's who of the financial world and sector. They come together and they brainstorm, and periodically they'll come out and give statements, and then the media runs with that, and they use it to juice the market or cause a concern, or nothing's really going on, and again you get these lackluster environments around the Jackson Hole Symposium. So it's kind of like the inside club coming together, but no one can really know what impact they're going to have. So we treat it like a non-farm payroll, we treat it like a FOMC type event where it's take a step back, try not to engage, because market moves can occur without any warning, without any kind of rhyme or reason. And the reason why that will happen is because there will be manual intervention, and the algorithm will be interrupted by, again, manual intervention. So they'll create some kind of a wild movement, which in my mind would be welcome at this point because the markets are kind of stagnant. They need to get moving a little bit. They're not really doing a whole lot in the last few weeks. It's been rather boring. And that's normal for summer doldrums, but I want to see some kind of an energetic move. One of the things I'm watching on the global front is China's interest in Taiwan. There's been some talk about how the U.S. may have as many as 50 to 60,000 servicemen and women in Taiwan. I don't know how to corroborate that and find out if that is in fact true, but it's just what's being talked about across certain news wires or whatever. That to me is just as important as what's going on in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, I think, has been a perfectly orchestrated mess up, which was designed by an Obama 2.0. And I think they left those arms over there just in the same way that Obama shipped cash over to Iran. It's facilitating, with tools and money, more destabilization, which leads to an eventual Middle East crisis. And I've told you for months now, war is going to be the end result of all this. It's going to happen, and that in itself will create market volatility. So while we could say in the US or in other countries, well, that's there and it won't affect me, well, if we're speculating, it will affect us. Okay? So just be mindful of that. Keep your eye on, what's going on over there in Taiwan. And for the life of me, I don't know if I have anybody from Taiwan in the mentorship. It's one of the countries I haven't really looked at to see if we had any students from there. I may have, I don't know. But if you are a student and you're a charter member, you're welcome to create a thread in the forum and keep us abreast as to what's going on, because that would be an interesting thing. I might actually create a area in the forum so that way it'll be like off topic. And I've been really reluctant to want to do it because it could very easily spin off into like QAnon type stuff, which I have already told everybody. And even when it was really popular, I said it's a psyop. It's to make everybody sit down and do nothing. And I think all the QAnons, okay, that were out there are sitting here scratching their head thinking, what's going on? This isn't what was supposed to happen. And it's not getting better. It's going to get worse. So you have to prepare. And all of these things, if we're paying attention and if we have people in our mentorship that are in these other countries that can give us a on the ground view and more or less information, if you will, while we can still do it, I think it'll be beneficial, not only for my own interests, but I don't want it to become a conspiracy distraction. Okay? I don't want to create an in-house conflict between those that would believe one thing and not another. So one of the rules here in the mentorship, once you become a charter member, you can engage and talk on the forum. There will be threads that you can create and be a part of and take a look at other people's opinions about the marketplace or whatever. I do believe if it's managed appropriately by you as the community, that being said, not taking odds at other members that may have an opposing opinion, I would appreciate it if you would just say, here's what's being discussed here, and try to keep your personal interpretation out of it and let the readers of whatever you share kind of like come away with their own opinion about what that information is, because I filter a lot of stuff that I see and most of it's nonsense, but other things are interesting because it's kind of hard to argue when you see the Australian police and government and in New Zealand doing the things that they're doing, and they're actually coming out saying, you can't do this, you can't go outside, you can't look at the sunset, you can't talk to your neighbors because you might infect them. It's like we're on a whole different, like I said, science fiction level, and it's going to get worse. Like it's going to get off the charts worse. And at some point, war will be a result. And war will absolutely cause all kinds of financial opportunities, but it will also bring hardships too. It may initiate wild price swings that nobody can really engage safely. And that's the unfortunate risks that we as speculators assume, which is why I'm telling you, just relax, because a false flag attack or event, let's put it that way, is going to happen soon. Before we see the end of this year, it's going to happen. What that is, I could care less, because it's going to create all kinds of shifts in sentiment. It's going to instill fear, which is what I'm not trying to teach you. I'm not trying to teach you to be a fearful person. I'm teaching you how to engage when everything, like when the initial blast of whatever this event would be, let it pass for a week or so. And then what we have as a chart will highlight where they have to go in either run for liquidity or rebalance. So you kind of like want to just sit on your hands and just observe right now. And I know it sometimes is a little unnerving And some of you probably don't want to hear what I'm talking about right now, but that's just too bad. Okay, you're going to have to accept it, because we're going into an era where whether you feel comfortable with this or not, you're going to have to contend with it. Not only here, but in your front yard. In your own home, you're going to have to deal with this. So you might as well just get used to having to balance it, look at it with the proper perspective, not through fear, not through anxiety. I'm not trying to fear monger. I've never done that. I've had members quit, months ago. They thought I was fear mongering, and some of them have been emailing asking if they can come back because now it's happening in their country. No, the door's closed. Sorry. Bottom line is this. We're looking for opportunities that make sense, that is one-sided. That means it's easy, low-hanging fruit. That's what this mentorship teaches you. It's not, I'm going to teach you every 1 minute price swing and you're going to go in there and look like a market wizard. That's not what this is. What I'm teaching you is to find the opportunities when the market's so overwhelmingly obvious that it's going to go for the previous week's high or the previous week's low. And once it does that, are we in an environment that will continue once it goes above the previous week's high, or continue to go below the previous week's low? That's it. But when we have opportunities to decide whether or not the previous week's high or low is the initial objective, that's the basis of our bias initially. We don't really need it to continue once it goes to the previous week's high or low. We're just looking for that clear, obvious one-sidedness that the previous week's high or low is going to be attacked. And right now, we don't have that. Presently, looking at the weekly ranges across both the euro and pound, we're really far away from, not that far, but we're far away in terms of relationship between euro. We have a lot of ground to go to get to the high on cable. We don't have that much ground to go on euro. And notice that the week prior to last week, it's kind of like relatively equal highs. So we could go above that and go into the mean threshold of the last up close candle on the weekly chart. It might sweep that, and that might be a reactionary level that sends it lower, or I could be completely wrong and just keeps on going higher as euro crashes down and takes out these lows and gets into this imbalance here. Because I don't have a clear, obvious, this is what's going to happen. We have Jackson Hole Symposium. It's iffy, and we're still in the month of August. So again, you're learning what keeps me on the sideline, what keeps me cautious about not being in the marketplace at the present time or whenever I would be on the sidelines. It's this. Now, let me toss this in as well, because you obviously heard in the last video yesterday, I divulged, and a lot of you are sending me emails. If you haven't sent me an email, please don't send me an email. I appreciate what your sentiments are, asking me to get well and all, but if this week wasn't in August, and if we were not looking at the Jackson Hole Symposium for Thursday and Friday, okay, I would still probably be on the sidelines this week, because I have a lot of pain that I'm managing, and that is a huge distraction right now. I'm irritable. I've been irritable with my own family members, short because I'm uncomfortable. So if I'm agitated and irritated because of something like an illness, or in this case, and falling on my stairway, that is one of those things in real life, because we have to always balance these things. If you have something that happens in your life, maybe it's a death in the family, okay, or a job loss, something that you just don't see coming, it comes out of nowhere. Even if the markets look really, really good, I would probably still stand down and not do anything. And you're probably going to ask the question as to why. Because if we have something in our personal life that is causing, number one, a distraction, or pain, or concern, or worry, or anxiety, we're going to be looking for that feel-good, warm and fuzzy response of doing something right in the marketplace. And it doesn't matter if it's a $10 win, or if it's a $1,000 win, or $20,000 win. We'll look for something to give us that little distraction from the misery that we're what we're presently going through in our personal life. So one of the things that you learned if you went through all my free stuff on YouTube was not to teach yourself to treat these markets as a genie in a bottle. Like, fix my problems, distract me, give me money when I want to play the game, but don't take anything from me. That's the worst thing to do. So I kind of wanted to build this whole monologue, if you will, with the idea that reminding you that this is the core of what we do here. Now, this isn't the only thing you can do once you learn everything that I teach you, but I want you to be rooted in this premise right here. The weekly range is what we're focused on. All we need is a small portion of that weekly range. But if the weekly range is unwilling to make its way to the high or the low in an obvious fashion, then we're either stuck with assuming a loss if we've taken a trade, or we're forced on the sidelines and doing nothing. And both of those things are fine. As a trader, as a speculator, you need to be accepting that as, okay, well, this is a normal function of long-term participation in speculation. Because you're going to have losing trades. You're going to miss opportunities. You're going to have it wrong. You're going to have mixed signals that keep you on the sideline doing nothing and not really knowing why it's doing what it's doing. And that's normal also. But understanding that this is the reason why I teach over a full year with core content with new students when they come in, they're learning these areas or pitfalls, these snares, if you will, that trip up the unlearned because they won't know what causes these periods of uncertainty, consolidation, or in this instance, we could see volatility for no justified reason. Like the market could create some kind of a wild price move on Thursday and or Friday and leave us wondering, like, where did that come from? And I'm already letting you know in advance, this is one of those instances where manual intervention typically creeps in and they override the algorithm and they'll put in a level that they want to send the price up into or down into. And sometimes it goes right back into the middle of the range. And there it is. It just basically took people out. And now nobody is in a position of potential profit. That's what we can generally see as a historical reference on this event that takes place. And again, that's the Jackson Hole Symposium. All right, so let's get into this and wrap this up because I don't want to talk any more than I already did. The dollar index daily chart. See, we have ran above previous day's high, right in here, institutional order flow, back deeper inside of the buy side and balance, sell side efficiency. And I mentioned yesterday, if we trade down below here and we come back up in, that will likely create a bearish breaker. And liquidity below here, volume and balance would be the objective. We haven't accelerated in here, but that could obviously change tomorrow. And or it can completely reverse and go higher because we are still in an area where it could create an optimal trade entry. It could be populating new opportunities to go long. And I don't have a one-sidedness in here that gives me the confidence to say it's going to run the high here. I'm just giving you, if I'm wrong, and I could be wrong. That's why I'm trying to focus on the likelihood of my analysis being wrong because of the Jackson Hole Symposium. And because I'm not really speculating this week, I'm not really engaged, it's no skin off my back, and it should be no invitation for you to say, okay, ICT is saying it's going to do this or do that, because I'm leaving you with a 50-50, which is what we have in the marketplace. I don't want to say anything that would give you that little nudge and push you over the edge of saying, okay, yeah, I was waiting to hear something about the buy side or the sell side. Now I heard it, and I'm going to interpret what ICT said as it's a okay, go ahead and take that trade. That's not what I'm doing here. So if you do anything this week and you made money, you did it with conditions that I would not say, hey, high five. And if you lose money, I don't want to know that because I'm just going to say, I told you so. Why didn't you listen to me? So it's going to throw gas on the fire that's already burning. So we'll see what we get in regards to the Thursday and Friday Jackson Hole Symposium. Dollar index hourly chart ran above previous day's high here, and we're just about to sweep below yesterday's low. And we still have a little bit of that range in here with the order block. Just be mindful that it could hit that and then run back up and hit this premium high of the daily buy side balance, sell side efficiency. The fact that we have taken this high out here and we've broken down, if we get back above the premium high, that would be bullish. But as long as we remain below the premium high of that daily buy side balance, sell side efficiency, we're bearish. And we might be actually seeing the continuation of a market range sell model that attacks the sell side liquidity resting below here. So again, as long as we're below this level here, think all through here is the likely run with Jackson Hole Symposium's intervention. That would be the run down to take the liquidity. Now, in this environment, this is what could happen. They could use Thursday and Friday's price action to take it down below there and then whipsaw right back up in and then resume higher and completely disrespect this whole imbalance, overshoot it, and then take out the liquidity and then rally. And if it did something like that and we got back above this high, that would be extremely bullish in my opinion, and it would probably be an extremely strong rally to get up into the levels we were looking for on the hourly chart, which let's go back up real quick. Over here, this high and this high, okay? But as long as we remain below the premium high of that buy side balance, sell side efficiency on the daily chart, we're bearish. Only in the sense that that's where the likely scenario would unfold for manipulation because of Jackson Hole. Okay, Jackson Hole Symposium's volatility, or the likelihood of the volatility that would be injected into the marketplace because of that event on Thursday and Friday. That is what I see as a likely disruption. Okay. So here is the 15-minute time frame on the dollar index. Relative equal highs. We ran through that. Again, taking out previous day's high. Here's the beginning of the 24th. Here's the initial high of the day and the low of the day. And swept it. And we're just about to take out, or what looks like we're going to be taking out at the time of this recording, the 24th daily low. Lots of wicks in here tagging that premium high of the buy side balance, sell side efficiency on the daily chart. Broke through it, came back up in. Look at the bodies respecting the premium high and breaks lower. Euro dollar daily chart. Okay, we have the sell side balance, buy side efficiency. This to me looks like it's not respecting this at all, and we're probably going to be wanting to go up into this area right in here. So buy side above this high and the imbalance there. Okay. Hourly chart on euro. Again, you can see how swept below the low here and here. Sell side liquidity taken on both lows. Rallies. Back up into premium high. And buy side liquidity above here and here are the next two draws on liquidity. So basically 117.85 and 118 big figure. Euro dollar 15-minute time frame. Again, you can see relative equal lows and low here. Trade down below that. Sent it above initial daily high. And finally ran it through the 24th daily high and above the premium high on the daily sell side balance, buy side efficiency. Came back down in, so we'll see if it wants to make a continuation on the upside to that 118 big figure. British pound versus US dollar daily chart. Came all the way back up rebalanced all of this, and now we're north of it now. So as I mentioned in yesterday's video, if we continuously trade higher, liquidity resting in here, and this fair value gap may be the draw. So 140.20, 140.30 in there could be the high level, and basically 140 liquidity may be the draw. And that's assuming, obviously, if we get some major change in the dollar index and it shifts to decisively bearish, then we would be looking for this on cable, because we had the opportunity to go lower below here and we rebalanced, but now we're just continuously moving above. So if we come a little bit higher, come back down into this, this might act as a bullish order block, which sends price higher to take the buy side here, here, and rebalance in this fair value gap. Pound dollar hourly chart. You see we've consolidated. Didn't quite get up into the midpoint. I mentioned that yesterday to watch that, and it didn't quite get there, but it certainly looks like it's going to work its way up there. Now if you look at this swing low and to the highs here, so low to high, that would suggest around that 138.20, 138.15 level as a measured move. Basically think of it like a bull flag. Now I teach you how to look for false bull flags. In this case, it looks like it might actually be a valid one. And what we're looking at here is consolidation, lead the consolidation, come back up, distribution, redistribution, smart money reversal, low risk buy, accumulation, reaccumulation, and we'll look to see if we want to trade above for this buy side liquidity here for that 138.80. So we may be looking at an hourly pound dollar market maker buy model. And finally, pound dollar, 15-minute time frame. See, we traded down below the London low. Consequent encroachment. Rallies. Buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency, consequent encroachment. Rally. Consolidation before running out the initial high of the day, and look back over here, relative equal highs. This high here, we'll call it 137.45. 10 pips above it would be 55. 20 pips would be 65. And we rallied through it and go 20 pips above, digging into this buy side. And I think that's going to be it. I know it's not what you want. You want me to really point to the obvious and make it really feel good for you to go in and probably operate and engage with it. I'm respecting the level of risk right now. And that's all part of what you're learning here. You're learning how to manage risk. You're learning how to know why to sit still and not feel uncomfortable. If you feel antsy, like I'm missing out, yeah, that's normal. The folks that have been here for a number of years now, they don't feel that itch as bad as the new group is right now. You feel like you need to be trading all the time. You're getting weapons of engagement. Okay, you're learning how to see things before they happen. So you think that every day is the opportunity for you to do something. There is opportunity for you to do something always, but that invitation doesn't always equate to a favorable outcome. And I'm trying to, as a community, get you all to understand there are times when it is so easy. Then it's just a matter of knowing what you want to do. You want to be a scalper, a day trader, short-term trader, swing trader, or a position trader. And there's times where it's 50-50 or even less than 50-50. And those odds are not what we want to focus on. We do not want that. We want to see things so obvious. And we're not looking for trend. Okay? We're not looking for a trending market to make it obvious. We're looking for that one-sidedness that tells us the weekly range is going to expand, bullish or bearish. We know what we're likely to reach for or to rebalance to. And that's it. It's liquidity or rebalancing. And we want one side of the marketplace to be heavier in terms of odds than the other. And if we can make the case for both sides, which is what we can do right now, that's not high probability. And you should be welcoming that. You should feel good that you're learning that, because that's where every retail trader fails. That's where I failed every single time I blew out an account. Every single time I did it, it's because I didn't understand these periods where I felt like, okay, I have time. My family's outside. They're doing things. They went to an amusement park or whatever they're doing. I have time to be in here undisturbed. I'm watching these charts and I'm going to find an opportunity to make money. Well, I found an opportunity and an excuse to get in, but it didn't go where I wanted it to. And because it didn't go where I wanted it to, and it took money from me, that starts the whole process of the loser cycle. I didn't understand at the time why I was wrong, but I was wrong, so I would reverse and go the other way. And then it didn't do that either, and it would take more money from me. Or I went back in with another trade in the same direction, and it reversed that time. And I didn't understand why it wasn't working like I wanted it to, because the market wasn't clearly working towards one side of the marketplace. It was going back and forth. And I'll give you an example. This could be the opportunity where we see it run up, and you think that this is a sell. I'm not saying that you wouldn't see this now. I'm saying if you're a developing student, you'd be surprised at things you're not paying attention to. And I'm telling you, in the 90s when I was learning how to trade, I fell victim to a lot of that stuff. Okay, I would chase this, go long, and then it would come down. It would scare me. Once it got to here, I'm thinking it's going to go to my stop. So now I'm going to do what? I'm going to go and cancel that order, protect my position from being stopped out, and then now I'm going to go short. And then it goes up here, scaring me, and then it breaks down. I feel like I've done the right thing. Then it goes below the low, and now I'm married to the idea. It's going to keep going down. And I reject any notion that this is going to reverse, even when it's up here, and then I'm stopped out. Or I remove my stop thinking, okay, it might just tag this level. And then it goes up to that level, and I say, okay, it might go just a little bit more, and then it screams, and then I'm finally forced out of it because of fear. So I sold here, and I get out up here. That's the type of stuff I was doing in the 90s. And some of you new students are probably nodding your head thinking, I thought I was the only one doing that kind of stuff. Everybody does it when you first start. And in the 90s, I did those types of things. And it would be so debilitating and just demoralizing to me as a man, because I felt like I wanted to win all the time. I felt like I could win all the time, which is unrealistic. And I felt because I gave myself all the advantages of not having anyone in my home to distract me. My kids weren't home. My wife wasn't there. Everything was turned off. No phone could disrupt me. And I was going to, by hell or high water, make money because I was forcing my will in the marketplace. And I was humbled. Not once, not twice, many times. And it finally got to the point, and this is answering some of the questions I get too. How did I overcome adversities when it felt like it was too hard to continue in the beginning? Number one, I did not believe I was ever going to quit. I needed to stop and take breaks, even though I called it quitting at the time. They were just periods of stopping because I needed to ground myself. I was too emotionally and psychologically invested, and it was painful. So I had to take a step back and reevaluate things and go back in with a fresh perspective. And I still would fail, and I failed many times doing that, but I did not see it as I was never going to get it. I just felt like, okay, is this going to be really worth it? Because if it's this hard, once I figure this out, I'm going to feel so empowered. And you have to have that faith that no matter how hard it is for you to learn this in the beginning, it's worth it. Because you're not going to win every trade, and you're not going to be right about everything. Your analysis isn't going to be right. My analysis isn't always right. And I'm doing this for a full year when you come under my tutelage, and as a mentor, I'm telling you what I think is going to happen. Not because I'm right all the time, but I want you to remember there are periods in the year that I do not have it right. A lot of you like to pretend that doesn't exist. Okay, like you think, well, I'm going to just focus on the time that he's right, and yeah. And that's cool, and I appreciate that, but I really want you to focus in on the periods where I'm not right. how little that is, but it happens. And it doesn't change the effectiveness of what you're learning. It doesn't diminish my ability to be a fruitful mentor to you. And it teaches you by example that even the best can get it wrong, can miss opportunities, and yes, interbank traders, and I've been getting a lot of questions through Telegram, do interbank traders lose money? Yes. They can lose money because they mismanaged their stop, or they missed the opportunities because they were not engaging when they should have. So just because they're in an interbank capacity and they're aware of what the algorithm is doing does not in any way make them infallible. So as long as the element of human is there, we all have the capacity and the likelihood of messing it up. And that is something that you need to embrace early on. Because if you think that you're going to get to the point where I'm going to be better than ICT, and I'm never going to have the periods that he has where he can't see it. Look, I had that same view. Like, I wanted to go in and figure out where were the times where it was less likely to be accurate, and then I'm going to decipher that period. No, forget about that. Forget that. I lost fortunes trying to do that. It's easier just to recognize the periods where I'm probably going to be wrong. The market's going to be not supportive to very efficient, low risk, easy one-sidedness trading. And if I can identify that, then I'm just going to dial back my risk and or take my hands off the buttons entirely and not trade and just use it as experience, because I can find opportunities throughout the year and engage and find those opportunities that are one-sided. And I want you to be that student that appreciates and focuses on that, because there's enough of that in a year to do what you need to do to build either a secondary income, to pay a bill off each month or a banknote, or if you really work at it hard and you manage your money right, you could build wealth on the markets. You can, but not everybody's going to be able to do that. Some people are going to come in here, learn just how to make enough money to just pay off something that they have as a bill, and they may feel like they failed. I don't see that. I see that as a success, because otherwise, how else would you be paying that? You'd have to go to work and work hours to get that. So it's a matter of balancing and revisiting what's realistic. I'm not trying to promote Instagram lifestyle. I'm not trying to push that on you. I'm not trying to entice you. You don't see any of the things that I have, but I'm showing you in the realist way by having you with me for a full calendar year. When you come under core content, you see where it's strong, where it's weak. We generally have a good feel for where we're going to have problems beforehand, and the majority of the time our analysis is right. There are times when we're not right, or I have to stay on the sidelines and say, right now I don't have a good reading. Now, if you are a individual here that feels like that's unacceptable, or that's not reasonable for someone that has been doing it as long as I have, or claims to know what I know, I should know everything. No, I've told many times that I'm not omnipotent. I don't know everything. I just know the times when it's likely to be in my favor, strongly in my favor, with a one-sidedness. It makes the analysis easy during those periods. And if you really work hard and you do your work in those periods, you won't need to be stressing about periods like in the month of August or the month of January or even December. You just know when to press your edge, your model, because it's supportive in the current economic climate and seasonal tendency. Right now, as a closing comment, I want you to just remember, okay? Remember the climate that we're in right now. Right now. Every country's economy is getting ravaged. Every currency has no real clear path. The stock market is the only thing that's going up. Okay. You can argue and say, well, crypto is going to be this. And crypto is not stable. It's all over the place. Okay. So that's never going to be a reserve currency. That's never, you might as well get it out of your head. That's not going to be a reserve currency. In the form of at least Bitcoin, it's not going to be. The commodity markets are cooling off, but they will enter another period of explosive moves again. So we're in this transitional period with the most historic level of fear, trepidation, uncertainty, and economic meltdown. And it's not localized to any one nation. It's everywhere. Everywhere. So for the young men and women in here that feel like, everybody in here that's been through the mentorship for a number of years, or ICT myself, I should be able to go in here and know exactly what's going to happen. Look, we've never been here before. Like, no trader, nobody has ever been where we all are right now. We're staring out into the abyss. Like, at any time, these currencies could be devalued like that and instantly change the whole lay of the land everywhere and create chaos like you've never seen before. The stock market could go into a free fall just like that, because there's no justification for where it's going. But like I mentioned over a couple of years ago, I said that we would be Venezuela 2.0. And their economy was going to the tank and everything was a mess, but their stock market boomed. And I said we would be the same way. We would see a boom. It doesn't mean that we won't have deep corrections, but ultimately, the wealthy are going to keep doing what they're going to do. And that means they're going to find opportunities to put their money, because their money, they want it moving. They want to have velocity. And velocity is always going to chase yield. And money seeks yield. At some point, the stock market in the U.S. and equities are going to have to pay the piper, because it's so overly inflated, it's ridiculous. And maybe it will be the war, or maybe it will be a civil unrest that balloons up in the United States that causes, great concern. And then the institutional traders will pull funds out in a very quick fashion, and then it'll pull the rug out from underneath everything, and then it'll collapse. I don't know where that collapse is, just so we know. But we're talking in honesty here. I think that we could potentially see a deep correction. If we go into another lockdown, if they say that the U.S. is going into another lockdown, forget about it. It's going to be a deep, deep dive. And if they do put us in lockdown, I think it's going to be far longer than what we went through the last time. So that's the abyss that we all stare into. The uncertainty of, where are we? Where are we going? Stocks have never been where they're at right now. Indices have never been where they're at. I get so many questions by mentorship students. Where's the top in S&P? Where's the top in the Dow Jones? When is the stock market going to crash? Well, I don't know. Like, where is the ceiling? I don't know. Like, we're just about there, at 4,500 on S&P. That's crazy. Are we looking for a quick mad dash to 5,000? Maybe. Do we fail to get to 5,000 and pull a Bitcoin 20,000 and have a deep dive before ever coming back up there again? I don't know. So now more than ever, you need to be very nimble about what it is you're trying to do in these charts and in your trades, because it's easy to get wrapped up in the hysteria, okay, or the pandemonium. Remember when Bitcoin was going all straight up and I was given 50,000 and 60,000 as my yearly target. I said I just can't see anything more. It went a little bit past 60,000, and then what happened? It corrected deeply. Now, I don't believe personally that Bitcoin is going to 100,000 this year. That's my personal belief. I have nothing to substantiate that. It's just my personal belief. I just don't see it happening, because I believe if we do have the problems that looks like we're going to encounter and have to deal with, whether we want to deal with it or not, these things are happening. Okay, look at the folks in Australia. Okay, if you're a charter member and you're seeing things that you've never seen before, and like I could go on like forever from what I've seen. Okay, and maybe there's other people in our mentorship that aren't aware, but it's like 1984, the book. Like, it's happening in New Zealand. It's happening in Australia. Like, they're doing some really nasty things to their people. And because it's somewhere else, you think, well, that's, it's horrible, but, it doesn't affect me. It's started in Australia. Now it's gone to New Zealand, and it's going to spread out like a cancer. It's going to come to America. In the United States, we will have that boot on our neck. Or we can say, well, I'll meet you in the streets. And I think that's ultimately what's going to happen here. While we still have arms, that creates a whole different paradigm than what we see going on in Australia and in New Zealand. In France, they have people standing in front of the grocery stores denying them access because they haven't been vaccinated and they don't have a passport. That is very concerning. And that's exactly the things I was telling you, that when we first started this whole thing, I was in agreement to the 2 weeks. Shut everything down, do what you got to do if it's, being advised for a medical stance. Let's do it. Let's see if it helps. But anything more than that, if they don't, release us from that, this is going to go on for a long time. And now, here we are, a year and a half into this show, and they're talking about booster shots, vax passports. You got to have papers to leave your area, 5 kilometers. This is like Nazism. Okay, and honestly, like the same people that were perpetuating that back then, that's who is behind all of this. The World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, they're Nazis. They are Nazis, okay? And that brood is who I turn my back from. I don't want to be associated with any of that. But they're tightening their grip on everything in the world. And there will be a time that you're going to be forced to make a decision. And I told you, and I've been consistent, I'm not complying. I'm not. You can. It's your choice. I'm not. I'm not saying do what I'm doing or don't do what I'm not going to do. I'm saying I'm not. I'm not taking that poison. I don't care about a passport. I don't have a problem being introverted. Nobody's coming in my home. And I could care less about being in civil, social events. I don't care about going to the theater. I don't care about going shopping because I can have things purchased and delivered to my home. If I have to have people that have vaccinations get things for me, I'll go that route. I'm that determined to stand in opposition to all of this. Now, am I going to go out in the streets and protest? No, because I don't think personally that's good for my family, because anything can happen. That's like inviting an accident. That's inviting hardship. I'm trying to be a gray man, okay? I'm not trying to stand out. That's why I'm also quiet, where I used to say a lot of things on my community tab on my YouTube channel. I don't want to draw any attention to myself. That's also the reason why when I spoke in my Telegram channel, the things I said, once I had said them, I deleted it. Because I don't want to draw any special attention to myself. I'm already on the radar for other things. I don't want to be singled out for the things I'm saying, because there's enough moving targets out there that I should stay below the radar. And I don't want to be an advocate for protest. I don't want to be an advocate for uprising. I'm just saying that it's obvious that that's what's going to happen. Okay, it's gonna happen. You don't see on your news all of the rallies. Like France, they had so many people out in solidarity, like saying, screw you. And we don't want this passport. We don't want to get vaccinated. We don't want to have that stuff for a disease that's 99%, you get over it. Now they're forcing them to inoculate their children against their will. Nobody's putting anything in my kids, because I have freedom seeds that they can catch before they try that. And if you don't know what that means, Google it. That's a hill I'm ready to die on. So, for the young people that probably don't have children, you're millennials, and you think it's all about the roulette table of pushing buttons and you're going to win money here. There's far more at stake right now than there has ever been. And it's not conspiracy. Look around, man. Look around. It's getting science fiction level. You're being told you can't do anything but stay in your house. If you're vaccinated, you still have to wear a mask. And you have to get more shots. And it's madness. Like, it is madness. I was talking to my cousin last night, and he's a heavy Trump supporter. And I'm indifferent, because I think they're all part of the same club. One side of the same coin. And it was startling to see how oblivious he was to everything. And it's because he trusts whatever comes across the television in the United States, and it's only what they want you to see. Like, they're not going to show the protests in other countries where everybody's pouring out into the streets saying, hell no, we don't want this, and we don't want this passport crap. If you submit to this, you are absolutely giving your whole life and existence and your family freedom away, and it will never be given back. And people that are aware of what's going on know this. They've seen it coming. A lot of us seen this coming. And I warned about this very thing, because they won't waste this opportunity. And everybody laughed. Everybody had jokes. And I can tell you, there's a lot of people that have emailed me and stated, man, I thought you were nuts. I thought you were mad. I thought you were talking out your backside. And I made jokes, and I want to apologize. Look, I get it. But that's irrelevant. You got to get your house in order. And part of the house being in order is not looking at these charts as an escape, like trying to get money. It's an escape by studying and keeping yourself constantly learning, constantly getting better at reading the charts, but also respecting the level of risk and knowing not to do something because it's not likely to pan out in your favor. And it's comforting and rewarding to know that you could have an observation in the marketplace, but because of the current climate and the uncertainty and the high level of risk, I'm not going to engage, but this is what I think is going to happen. And when you're wrong and you see that you're wrong, you don't look at that as, oh man, I suck, I'm never going to get this. You think to yourself, wow, I am so proud of myself because I thought I saw something there, but my experience and my development and growth told me that not to engage would be the better management of risk. And because it would have failed and I didn't lose money, this is winning. This is progress. Because there's going to be a time in the future that I will not be with you. And you'll have to do these things on your own. And you'll have to rely on what I'm showing you. Throughout the year, there's periods of uncertainty, things that creep in the marketplace, and or maybe, just maybe, things are absolutely changing across the entire horizon on a financial scale. And maybe a whole entirely new monetary system may be underway. Or not. I don't personally know for certain. I do know that what they're instituting is something I don't want to be a part of. So, you're going to have to make a decision for your own house, what you're going to do. Because I don't know all the answers to that. I don't have a solution to everything. And if they're going to blow out every economy and completely collapse everything and bring in a one currency, a one government, we have bigger problems than that. If that's what's going on, we have a real problem. So that's where faith kicks in. And a lot of people are going to be confused. They're going to be scared. They're not going to know what to do. And that's why I lean on my faith. Because even if I didn't have the money, even if I didn't have the skill, even if I didn't have all the things I have right now in my life, I would be the same way right now about everything. I would not be taking the vax. I would not be worrying about, who's going to be elected, because it doesn't make a difference. That's why I've never voted. I've never voted. And when I look at these marketplaces, as we have them right now, the only thing I see is near-term volatility with no rhyme or reason right now to be in anything. And so many potential opportunities for this to have a black swan event come in and blow out both sides of the marketplace. And just some wild volatility injection that just completely eviscerates the market. And that's from the financial side. We're looking at a stage that is so ripe and primed for a false flag event, 9/11, Pearl Harbor, something to that effect, okay? Because, like it or not, they're going to pull Biden out. They're already building a narrative that, the UK is holding Biden in contempt. The whole idea that, Harris is doing things more presidential than Biden is, speaking with world leaders, going across seas instead of going down to the border, which is what she was assigned to do, never did that. So there's going to be a transition, and they're going to remove Biden, and Harris will take over. And then you got Pelosi, and then whatever comes from that. All this stuff is like a constant storm of chaos, confusion, uncertainty, and nothing good. It's nothing good. That's a perfect recipe for market volatility that's off the charts. And most traders today are so sugar high on crypto that all they see is vertical going up. They could care less about any kind of correction. And in fact, they're so indoctrinated, they tell themselves, like a cult, you know, buy the dip. I hope it keeps going down. It keeps going down. These are the same people that probably have less than $100 invested in it. Okay? Of course, they don't care. But there are other people out there that have invested their whole life savings. They sold their house, all their possessions, and moved into a rental property. And they have all their money banking on crypto, Bitcoin, everything going to whatever. Like, I just can't stress it enough how perfectly primed these markets are for utter chaos. And if you're caught off guard and you're on the wrong side of the marketplace when that happens, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing you can do. Your stop losses will not work. And that's something that I don't want any of you to endure. Because that completely takes you out of the game. Or at least it could. And adding to all of the other hardships that's going on right now, it's avoidable. Okay? It's absolutely avoidable. My focus and my attention, okay, is watching the commodity markets. I'm watching those commodity markets because what the dollar index does over the next 90 days sets the tone for how much we're going to see in terms of huge market moves in the commodities. Like, food is not done being attacked. And now everywhere you hear water, 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 there's a water shortage. Remember I told you when they created the water futures contract in trading? That's not a good thing. That was an opportunity for those that know what you're learning from me, that there's going to be a problem with water. They're going to manipulate everything. Yes, there's a drought. Yes, water levels are extremely low. Extremely low. But they're going to exaggerate it. And it's going to create fear. And they're going to turn water off. And they're going to turn the opportunity for irrigation of crops off. And that's going to affect next year's crops in spring and summer and fall. And there's nobody to put them in check. Because the elections are next November. A lot of things can happen between now and November of next year. And that's what I'm trying to tell you, that just keep your hands still. Settle yourself. Try not to get caught up in all the emotionalism and the fear that everybody else is getting wrapped up in. Because you can't control anything that's going on. The only thing you can control is how you react. And you can prepare the best you can. I get emails all the time. I don't have a lot of money, Michael, to do like what you're saying. You say you have this much food. I don't say these things so that way you can say, wow, he has a lot of money to be able to do this. You can go to the dollar store and buy up a lot of things at the dollar store. There's canned goods there. There's frozen foods there. They're not the best in nutritional value, but I'll tell you right now, if it came to going hungry or eat that garbage that they sell in those stores, I would eat that stuff. I would. But I've been preparing for years. I told you before Trump was elected that we're going to see the Wild Wild West and science fiction stuff. I mean, folks, listen. There's a huge number of you that have been with me, and I said these things. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm not surprised at what's going on. And that you shouldn't be surprised. You maybe didn't agree with me back then, but I'm telling you, it's getting worse. It's going to be worse. And if you don't prepare, and when I say prepare, it doesn't mean go out there and just buy food or buy extra things for your home. It means prepare your mind. Prepare your emotions, that it's going to be hard and that you can't do anything about it And the only thing you can do is occupy yourself with things that will take your mind off of the things that you can't control. So even if you don't trade, you can engage yourself with studying. It'll keep you occupied. And there will be obvious one-sidedness coming in the weeks and months ahead. It will be there. But right now, you have to respect the measure of risk that's out there. If you don't, I promise you will regret it. And it's something that no matter how much I talk after you endure something like that, there's a lot of folks that have that problem of not listening to me, creating a problem for themselves. They hurt themselves. And then when they listen to me, like I'm talking to you now, counseling you, assuring you that what you're doing, even though it doesn't feel comfortable or the right thing to do, it is the right thing to do. But the folks that don't listen and they fall into a pitfall and they lose money or they've done something to hurt themselves financially because I told them not to do something and they did it, no matter what I say, will not comfort them. And it probably won't comfort you. So avoid it. This is what I do. I avoid these periods where I know I'm probably wrong. And if I'm probably wrong in these instances, more times than I'm right, why on earth would I want to gamble just to see if I was right? I don't need to be losing money to say, yeah, I was right by not wanting to be in here, but I just had to do it because I don't have self-control. No, I have self-control. And you need to fortify your own self-control. And the only way you do that is by forging it in these periods right now, where it feels like I need to be doing something. I want to be doing something. I saw somebody talk about taking this trade and they made pips and I'm not doing it because ICT said this is what it is and this is what it ain't. I get it. It's hard to wrestle all that stuff, which is why I told you get off of social media, because 90% of them are liars. They probably didn't take the trade, or they have two accounts on demo and they did one direction one way and one direction the other. And or they have a trade they put on 6 months ago with no stop loss. They pulled up an old demo and now it looks like the chart went up to that level where they entered and it's probably a half a pip away from their spread. Would have never allowed them to get in there, but they're trying to sell the idea that they took that trade. That's the kind of garbage that's out there. And you being in a situation like we are right now, where we have to sit still. That's the best decision. Sit still. When you see other people lying and pretending to be doing something, or maybe they really did. I'm sure there are folks out there that are actually taking trades and making pips. And when you see that, it makes you feel like you're not doing what you should be doing, because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. Okay, that's the expression we have here in the U.S. It means you're trying to do what everybody else is doing. And you don't need to be doing that. Do what you can and avoid the things that you can't do or shouldn't do. And that's what mentorship provides for you. It gives you a framework on how to conduct yourself from an emotional standpoint, a psychological standpoint, and from a financially responsible stance. What should you be doing? What shouldn't you be doing? When should you be doing it? When shouldn't you be doing it? These are all the things that mentorship under my wing gives you. But it's lessons like this that you have to be with me for weeks and months and up to a year to fully understand. Because I could take you back in time into a chart and say, hey, look, I would be sitting on the sidelines down here. And then half of you be like, yeah, right. You know, you're only saying it now because it's after the fact and it's obvious. But you probably would have been looking for this and that. No. You're seeing there are periods and justifications and rules why I sit still, why I say I'm not doing anything right now. That's what all these yahoos out there don't know. They don't know it. They do not know it. And even the bigwig, well-respected people out there, they don't teach like this either. Name them. They don't teach like this. They all have things that get you into a trade. They never teach you when you should not be trading. Nobody teaches that. There's no trading books that tell you that. There's no educators out there doing that. There's no workshops. There's no seminars. There's no webinars. There's no services. Nobody teaches like this. because the majority of them don't have nearly 30 years experience. They all just started last summer or a couple years ago when I started a YouTube channel's video series. Okay, that's the basis of most of what you're seeing today. Echoes. And you are in a position of advantage. As much as it may not feel like it is, sometimes it feels like you're not going forward. It feels like you're going backwards or feeling stagnant. That is growth. And that's a growing pain, because there's going to be times when you aren't listening to my voice, because anything can happen, folks. Tomorrow's not promised to anybody, and I'm included in that. We may not be able to communicate. They may change things, and the internet is disrupted. And you'll have to rely on the downloaded videos that you have to remind you of the things like I'm telling you right now. These are the meat and potato discussions. Okay, these are the hard medicine. It's bitter to swallow, but it's good for you. These are the times where you sit down, because in my mind, I'm talking to my children right now. Okay, all of you probably think I'm sitting down just talking to just you individually, but it's me in my mind talking to my children. That's who I have in my mind as I'm speaking to you in this video. Because I want them to understand, should anything happen to me, that these are periods when Dad would not be doing anything. And the reasons why is what I've been discussing in this video. So these are always the videos that are most likely to not be enjoyed, or the ones that I've gotten complaints about in the past, and people have quit because you're talking too much and you're not teaching us anything. When in fact, this is one of the highest lessons you could ever hope to learn, is to understand how you're going to lose. Because I literally could write a book on how you're going to lose money trading, and nobody will want to buy that. But that's the book I would be buying. That's the book that I would be wanting to buy. Because it's not as simply saying, oh, well, go out there without experience and open up a live account and start trading with retail stuff. That goes without saying. But it's easy to believe that there's opportunity always, and there isn't always opportunity that's high probability. So the book could be titled that, and literally be like what I've said many times in the past, where I could teach mentorship. I could teach it and put it on the front of the USA Today, and it would be largely ignored, and nobody would do anything with it. But it would be a blueprint to make millions of dollars. Just like this video here. This video is teaching common sense, practical insight, and the emotional management and the psychological management of you as the trader. Keeping things in proper alignment, reminding you of what we're doing when we're not doing it. Why is that? What's the basis of not doing something? Because if you come into mentorship, and let's say that I started mentorship this month, okay, and this is the month you'd be having as your first month exposure to me, you would all quit. Every single one of you would quit, regardless of whatever you've seen me do in the past. This would cause you to quit. Because it's a period when it's like it is. I'm honest and tell you, I don't do hardly anything in the month of August. And it sounds like, what is going on? But then you contrast that with the other months where we're really strong in our analysis. Seasonal tendencies are there. The analysis is spot on. And it just looks effortless. Those are the times where if I was going to do a signal service, I would run it seasonally. And I wouldn't do anything in the month of August. So no one would pay in the month of August. And no one would be in a room expecting me to do anything. And I wouldn't do anything in the month of December. And I wouldn't do anything in the month of January. But all the other months, I would. And I wouldn't be trying to do a lot because most people can't follow rules. And even folks that come into my mentorship can't follow rules. And they struggle. They try to do their own thing. They try to take a smorgasbord of cherry-picked things from the lessons before understanding what those lessons are really teaching. And they come up with this kitchen sink approach to a trading plan that really isn't rooted in logic. It's just taking buzzwords from lessons, but not understanding what it is that they're doing. And if you look at what goes on in Instagram and on Discord and Telegram and YouTube, the folks that aren't really underneath my tutelage and they have exposure to people that I throw out that leak videos because they think it's hurting my feelings or making me mad, I'm done. You're not taking any money from me. This is it. The 2021 group is it. They take my buzzwords and they apply it to their charts and the moves that happened already. And that's the highest they're ever going to go. They're never going to be able to trade, and they're never going to be able to teach anybody how to do what they're doing in hindsight. So you are here learning how to do this properly. And the way you learn it properly is by defining the periods of when it's high probability and also knowing with a surety the times that you're going to probably get it wrong. Do you have any idea how advantageous that is? So hopefully, I'm pushing the right buttons here and canceling out some of the concerns that some of you have, or maybe have but haven't reached out to me. I'm doing these lectures like this because in this month, in this climate, it's important for you to be reminded of why we are teaching and you're learning the same things each time we get into a period of uncertainty. You're giving yourself permission to stand down, to do nothing, to just observe and study. Because if you don't know what you're doing and you gamble in an environment like this, the results could be devastating versus a low volatility period like in the beginning of the year in January, and you do something wrong. Well, it's probably forgiving because the range is going to be very small, and the worst case scenario would be your stock gets taken and there it is. We do not have that right now. We have the perfect storm right now, and guess what? There's more storm clouds gathering. And I don't know what everybody else is out there talking about right now. I don't know what all the well-respected Instagrammers are expecting or thinking. I don't know what all the hot shots in crypto think is going to happen. I don't know what all the best stock traders and index traders have been thinking in the past couple weeks. I'm leaning on almost 3 decades of experience, and I trust what I've learned. And even though we're staring into this abyss with uncharted territories in terms of risk and uncertainty, I trust the periods of the year where money will be put to use. They may have different venues where they put their money this fall, but I know that we're building up a huge opportunity for the grain markets and meats because they're going to be kept at a low supply and high demand. And you can't have those conditions and not have historical price moves. So I'm comfortable with not being so attentive to Forex or indices. Okay, I'm monitoring the global supply chain. I'm monitoring the decrease in resources and the ability to grow food, because growing food is important, not just in America, but everywhere. And if it's affected and disrupted, That's a perfect trade. Like that's the perfect trade. And I don't want to miss this opportunity. Like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I've talked about it in the past, earlier in this year. And some of you flipped out and said, we're missing it. You didn't even tell us what options to buy. This is just setting it up. All this is just the preamble. It's the build up to it. It's the 2022 crops. Those are the ones that are going to be destroyed. They're just not going to have the numbers. And countries are coming out saying they're not going to get that much meat imported. They're not going to anticipate that much yield. And we're being told that, the farmers are saying they can't get that much water. Like, think about it. Read the headlines. It's like reading the tea leaves. Water shortage. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. Okay. So take a step back and see how that's going to affect the global supply chain for food. The common denominator is that we're going to have a problem. We all are going to have a problem with food costs because the supply will be extremely low. It's engineered famine. It's engineered shortage. And if you have a real commodity, not like crypto, not like currency, which is an illusion. All currency is an illusion. These numbers here, they're just telling you what they think is the value. They say that's the value of this British pound versus US dollar. They do. We don't say that value. But we have to accept it because it's their commodity. Well, corn, wheat, soybeans, oats, all these things are real things. They're real markets. That's a real market. And it's needed. It's not, I'm interested in crypto because there's really no need for crypto. That's why I argue with folks about it. It's like, it's not a real market. It's not. It's, I can't do everything that I can do with a currency that's fiat. There's certain limitations still. Now, I know some of you go, you can do this, you can do that, you can have apps, listen, I get it, okay? I get it. But strip that away and go back to what I just mentioned. Commodities are real markets. That's the grocery of the whole world. You can't eat a Bitcoin. I can't eat a British pound. What am I going to do with that? I can't eat shares of stocks. I can't eat an option, one stock options. I can't, it doesn't have any real intrinsic value to sustain life. Wheat does. Corn does. Soybeans do. They feed the world. And that's the real opportunity. That's the thing that's about to happen. Okay? That's it. And everybody is being distracted with everything else right now. And all I'm trying to do is gently remind you that you're on the right track. Just because we're not hyperactive and we're doing this and doing that in the marketplace does not mean that I'm slack. Okay? I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what I intend to be doing. My focus, and I'm just letting you know, I've said this earlier in the year, my focus is predominantly aimed at what's being set up for the largest commodity explosion, because we've never had, ever in the history, ever had a condition like we are seeing them orchestrate and engineer. They're paying farmers to turn their crops over and threatening removing their subsidies. They're telling them you're not going to have water to irrigate your crops because there's a water shortage. Okay, just with those two things alone, that's enough to drive the markets wild. Now you have the drought and you have COVID. People can't work. They don't want to work because they're getting paid to stay home. Folks, listen, I know a lot of you aren't versed in economics and you're not versed in things that make these markets what they are. what I just made in terms of a summary or a simplification of the things that leads up to this, it can't be any more simple than that. And if you can't simply take a step back from everything that's distracting you right now, and if you can't see this, to me that's astonishing, because it's obvious. It's obvious. And everything that's going on, okay? Everything. Taiwan getting invaded by China. Afghanistan, they gave all of our weapons, billions of dollars of weaponry and artillery and equipment, all those things left over there. Just left it. That was a gift. That was a gift. It was all engineered. That's meant to piss us off, to be arguing about it, because we can't do anything about it. It's done. All these things are distractions from what's really the problem here. There's an authoritarian move underway, and a lot of people, like me, are not interested in complying. I don't believe the government. I don't have any faith in the government. And I don't care if it's a Republican. I don't care if it's a Democrat. They're all, in my mind, in a position of not to be trusted. Period. And that goes across the board for all of them. Those individuals at the top that call themselves elites, they're not elites, but they like to believe they are. They are paying and financing the largest culling of the world population and economic wealth transfer there's ever been. And you control people when you control the food. People can get out there and stream and, put videos on there. This is what we're doing in the streets and all that stuff. But if there's no food, all the screaming and hollering and burning down their own neighborhoods and cities isn't going to make food magically appear. This isn't a feel-good video, folks. I know. It's not an uplifting video. But it's a sober reminder of what maybe you haven't been paying attention to. Maybe you haven't been noticing everything. Maybe you haven't been listening to me or been believing any of this stuff. And maybe it hasn't hit your area, your country, your neighborhood, your house yet. But it's coming, and it's going to. And if you aren't prepared for it, it's going to completely disrupt your whole thought process. It's going to bring on anxiety, likely, and confusion, and you're probably going to feel a rush or a desire to want to reach out to me in an email, and your email isn't going to stand out amongst the tens of thousands of emails I'm getting a month now. And it's going to make it even harder for you to deal with, because it's going to feel like he doesn't care. But that's not true, because I'm talking to you still, right now. I've been trying to prep all of you for this the best way I can. I'm showing you how to find opportunities to make money. I'm showing you how to avoid losing. How do you avoid losing? This video. Knowing what creates these periods of the year, or around what events, and what the market looks like. What we're looking for. How do we know when it's a good opportunity and when it's high probability? Because it's one-sided. It's going to run to expand bullishly on the weekly range or bearishly on the weekly range. That's it. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need to know what a trend is for 5 years, weekly chart looking at the last 6 months. I don't care about all that. What's the weekly range going to reach for? A bullish run? Previous high of the previous week? Or previous low of the previous week? That's all you need. There's enough pips in that. How much simpler can I make it? That's easy. That's an easy thing to do. And it's always available to you in terms of looking at the market like that, but nobody ever does it. Now they do now because they've been trained by me. But you don't need to know the trend. Okay? I'm not a trend trader. I am a liquidity specialist. That's it. That's all I'm focusing on. So, if this video hit you like I was aiming for, it has hopefully reminded you that periods of stillness, uncertainty, are periods of growth. That is maturity as a speculator. That is something that if you get into this industry and you lose a lot of money, you will really appreciate these understandings and teachings and lectures, because it frees up your mind to accept the fact that, yeah, there really are times when I shouldn't be doing anything. And to know why you shouldn't be doing it is empowerment. It's not weakness. It is not weakness. It's not lack of knowing. It's knowing that you shouldn't be doing it. That's the paradigm shift. That's the knowing part that gives you peace, and it gives you a sense of trusting what you're doing is the right thing. And the thing that you're doing is nothing. Doing nothing. Being still. There are times when that's the best thing. Think about the times that you went and you took a trade, and as soon as you put the button on and you're in the trade, you regretted it and you wish you could just go back and undo it. Wish I would just sat still. Right. You're learning that here. You're learning how to do that. Because I already taught you how to make money. I've already taught you how to find setups. But the real mentorship, this is how you stay in the game. Letting longevity do its work of letting your results compound and build. You have to be able to weather periods of uncertainty, knowing what they are, how to anticipate them. When is it likely that you're going to do it wrong more times than winning it? That's being mentored. That's how you know someone knows what they're talking about. When they're likely to get it wrong themselves and they're honest and they tell you, this is where I get it wrong. Majority of the time, this is where I do it wrong. So, since I've seen this, I have a measured track record of knowing that this is usually where I go into a tailspin. Every year in the past, I've always had this trouble reading the market in this time. So therefore, I have narrowed down to a small little window of time where I don't want to do something during this time because the results are adverse. They're not favorable. So I'm not trying to beat it into submission and conquer that time. I'm submitting to that. I'm submitting to time to get through that and not feel any sense of anxiety. I don't look at it as weakness or I'm a weak trader because I don't know how to trade even in these periods. I'm sure if I went down to a 1 minute chart, I could find something to scalp 10 pips or whatever. Okay. But to do that would imply and teach you by default that, hey, when it's like this and it's iffy, just go down to a 1 minute chart and squeeze out 10 pips. That defies the whole point of what I'm teaching you. Probabilities are low. So what happens if you try to just do those 10 pips and you lose? You're going to regret it because you know that this is a time when it's not likely to pan out and you did something you shouldn't have done. It's bad enough when you take a loss. It's like, okay, I trusted everything and everything looked like it was there and I took a loss. That's normal. That's a cost of transaction business. It's the part of the game. It's altogether something different when you know that you should not be doing it. Don't take a trade at all, but you just go in there and do it anyway. Well, it's the same thing I explained yesterday. I knew that there was a potential for me to fall on my steps. Okay? And not even 5 minutes later, it happened. And now my body hurts worse today than it did since it happened. You don't want to go through the pain to learn that that's not something you should do. I want you to listen to me and just say, you know what? This makes sense. And I'm going to trust it and go with it. I'm not going to look at it as a personal challenge to crack the code of these periods. Okay? Why? Why even bother with that? There's so many other times that you can do very, very well with little effort, low-hanging fruit, man. Don't think that you need to complicate this. It might seem very complicated while you're going through core content and you're being trained. But once you get to the realization that you only need a few things with the proper context, the proper time of the year, order flow in your favor, knowing the liquidity that you're drawing to, or rebalancing, it's easy. The hard part is waiting till that setup comes. When that condition is ripe to engage, that's the hard part. And that hard part is only exasperated because you don't know everything you need to know and you feel like you're never going to get there when you're growing towards learning how to do that. And these periods are a huge part of that learning curve. And they're not the popular parts. It ain't just this year in the 2021 group that's, probably not appreciating these types of conversations. Every year in every group, these are the conversations I would always get, and they were usually foreigners. They weren't usually American students. They were usually foreigners because they will say, well, these things, you talk too much and you're not teaching. When I am absolutely teaching. I'm teaching some of the best things I wish I could have understood in my early years because I could get lucky for long periods of time. And in these periods would undo everything I did for months in just a short period of a few days to a week. And then boom, the account's blown out. So it annoys me and it offends me when students that don't know anything send me an email and say, I don't like this lesson and you talk too much, you're not even teaching anything. That's a student that's not prepared to learn. Period. And that's how I replied to them in the past. So if you've been watching this video or you've come to the conclusion that, maybe none of this stuff really applies to you, my response is, don't send me an email. You ain't going to like the reply. 2, sit back and wait because it will affect you. Everything I've said in this video, everything, from all the things that's coming from a global front, supply chain, food, forced vaccine passports, all that, it's all coming to your front door. And there's absolutely nothing you're going to be able to do to deter their mindset about having that as the end result. Period. So you have a choice. You can get all caught up in fear and worry and completely be useless to yourself and your family. Or you can say, okay, I'm going to do what I have to do to stay occupied and not fall victim to fear. And I'm going to work towards being able to find ways to generate money to get things that I'm going to need and your family's going to need. And there it is. Because if you haven't come to the realization yet that they're fastly moving to, you need to have this shot in you. And you need to be with papers proving it. Or you can't have a job. You can't go to the grocery store to get your supplies. You can't be part of civil gatherings. You can't go out in public. And you're basically the plague. Like you're the walking dead to be avoided at all costs. And you won't have health care. And you won't be able to be treated by physicians. Don't take my word for it. Do some research because that's exactly what's going on right now. How are you going to compete with that? You have to have a way of being able to make money and have a stream of income that doesn't require you going to a location, submitting your time for money, submitting yourself to experimental drugs, with gene therapy they call it, and risk an adverse reaction. Because they say the 99% recovery rate of a cold requires you to have this done to you, or you can't be part of society. Like, to me, that's madness. My whole life I've been introverted. So I'm prepared for this. And I don't like being told what to do. So this whole thing, to me, I take it personal. It's like, I'm going to do whatever I can to thumb my nose to the whole movement. And if I can empower you to be able to withstand what's coming, then praise God. But I don't know everything. And I'm not promising or guaranteeing that this is going to be the solution. You may be forced, ultimately, at a time of some future date, that you still have to get it. And that's a decision you're going to have to make on your own. I'm not. My family won't. And that's it. So, I've answered a lot of questions. I've covered a lot of things that were given to me by my staff that were coming up a lot in the last 2 months or so. And I kind of gave you my blanket approach to responding to all of it. Obviously, I could be much more ferocious in some of the things that we talked about tonight, but I tried to be as palatable as possible. I know I probably still rubbed some of you wrong. Some of you in here that have really hard opinions about vaccinations or your specific party of choice, Democrat or Republican. I'm not here to be a part of a club or a group. Okay, I'm not a team mentality kind of guy. So I'm rogue. I'm out there. I'm an outlier. I stay on the outside because I don't want to be in the herd. And I look at myself as a predator, not prey. And that sometimes comes across as abrasive, arrogant, belligerent, rude, obtuse. But I try to be as a straight shooter as I can. And you may not agree with what I tell you in regards to certain things. But I want you to respect the level of honesty I have and my personal convictions. And I'm not here to try to convert anybody to my way of thinking. I'm just telling you what's on my mind, what I'm dealing with when I'm looking at these charts, what I'm preparing for, how I am preparing for it, why I'm staying still, when I'm staying still. So I'm managing all of these things. So it may not be the answer that some of you want. Okay, so in closing, just think about this. Maybe you were expecting a highly technical thing that leads to why I do this or that, or don't do this and don't do that. What I explained to you in this video is what it is. And I gave you the supporting factors that are weighing on my decisions. So you pay for knowing how I navigate emotionally, psychologically through the marketplace, what I'm looking at that I view as problematic for me as a speculator, what is advantageous for me as a speculator. So that way it's not always morphing and changing. You'll see that every year when we go into these periods, it's the same thing. I'm not creating new excuses for something. I'm showing you what I do and how I live and how I've been living, engaging almost 30 years in the marketplace. Following these markets with the same ideas each year, going in with the same expectations, and giving myself permission to be active certain times and taking away the permission for me to engage during other times. And hopefully it starts to make more sense when you look at it that way and not try to look at it as, he didn't answer it the way I wanted him to answer it. When I'm giving you the honest, no bones, no fluff, this is what it is. And now it's even more of a impact to learn this when you're trading, because we're moving into a era where if you don't know when to sit still, you could be done real fast, sorted and dusted real quick. So that's going to be it for this one. Obviously, it doesn't leave you with a feel good, warm, and fuzzy. But this is the teacher that you need. You need someone that's not going to lie to you. You need someone that's going to tell you without sugar. No lacing it with sweetness to make it easy to swallow. This is what it is. And you have to be ready to engage it and stare it right in its face and say, I don't know what's coming, but I know how I'm going to conduct myself. I know how I'm going to rely on the things I've learned, and I'm going to rely on the things that have shown itself effective. I don't know every move that's going to come. I don't need to know every move that's going to come. I don't need to fear getting stopped out, because I know that I have a process and a model and plan to weather that. And even though these setbacks are normal and they're not pleasant, they're not fun, they are just part of the overall process, and I will engage for years to come, and they will be many in my long career as a speculator, but they will not deter me from my end result or goal. And that's the only thing we can do as a trader. That's it. That's the mindset. You forge that, knowing when to engage, when not to engage, and why. And that's it. That's all you have to really worry about. And it's not an easy thing. It's hard, especially if you're new. It's very hard. And for people that started in 2016, these lessons mean a whole lot more to a group that just came in, January and February this year. And I've said these types of things in the past. You'll come to core content lessons from years ago, and you'll hear me talk to the group that just came in that particular year and refer to them in contrast to the people that were here when I first started in August of 2016, when I started the mentorship. That group, as small as it was, okay, they have all the experience being under my wing in this mentorship. And they've seen year in and year out. They've seen the times when we're not doing anything, we're sitting still. And they know when it's right, and my analysis is on. And the concepts work like Swiss timepiece precision. But these are times when it's not likely to present that. And that's all I'm trying to really gather your attention again, okay? And remind you all that maybe that you lost track of that. Maybe you forgot. Maybe you didn't understand or appreciate that this is what is normal. It's not that the concepts are failing. It's not that it's being changed and no longer going to be effective. This is normal. Okay? It may not feel normal to you, but this is normal. Okay? And we will be engaging. We will be seeing a lot more volatility. We're entering the fall months again. And there's always this mad dash to get the markets excited again, because they want yield. And money seeks yield. And when it presents itself, we'll be engaging. So until I talk to you tomorrow, be safe.